person in this building who doesn't need more money. And if you say, well, I don't need more money, then I would say you have a very poor outlook on life.
Some of the practices are what I would describe as abusive, spiritually, emotionally.
It's just the church, giving glory to God.
I wouldn't call it a church, I call it a corporation. And the things that drive them is music and money.
You need to ask the question, when does prayer stop and profit-making begin?
It's Australia's fastest growing church, but Hillsong isn't just about the power of prayer, it's also about profit and plenty of it.
I'll never forget the great celebrations last year when we announced that we had purchased a beautiful piece of property.
In just 25 years, Hillsong has created a global empire under Minister Brian Houston. But it's not a miracle that's helped them accumulate $100 million in facilities and secure an annual income of more than $50 million.
One of the first things we're going to need to do is to pay off the $28 million debt.
Instead, it's their loyal followers who hand over at least 10% of their income, and loopholes in our tax laws, which means the church doesn't pay a cent to the taxman.
For the majority of members, a good deal of them would have that 10% and then give more. And that was explicitly explained as a teaching.
Steve West was just 17 when he signed up for Bible school at Hillsong. For 6 days of the week, he dedicated not just his time, but up to 70% of his student income to the church. But after 5 years and $5,000, Steve started asking questions about where his money was going, believing Hillsong leaders would keep their promise of open accountability.
I needed something to say, this money isn't being abused. I needed something to say, this isn't just going into the pockets of leaders.
After his first meeting with Hillsong's general manager, Steve walked out with not a single figure. But somehow he was convinced his tithes and offerings had been well spent.
The critics said very clearly, you don't have a single fact. Can you see what they've just done to you?
So you'd been brainwashed?
Effectively, yes.
While members may not get the reassurances they're promised, recent investigations have revealed some alarming figures. Firstly, Hillsong earns more than $9 million in tax-free royalties each year. Then there's the claim tax-free companies in the Hillsong network can provide Brian and his family with luxury cars, waterfront properties rumoured to total more than $1.5 million and up to $1 million in expenses.
They preach what is known as a fake prosperity message, that God will give to you if you give to him. But the problem is that you're not giving to God, you're giving to Hillsong. You're giving to Brian Houston.
Assemblies of God pastor Philip Powell said they are abusing a law which protects smaller, struggling churches.
They've become motivational speakers, and they've thrown the element of God into it, which is abominable in my opinion.
This is about doing the right thing. Legitimate organisations have nothing to fear.
Independent Senator Nick Xenophon is fiercely lobbying the federal government to regulate churches like Hillsong under a charities commission, similar to New Zealand and the UK.
Hillsong doesn't even have to provide a tax return under the current rules. That simply isn't good enough.
Brian Houston has admitted he earns more than $300,000 from the church and does pay some personal income tax. How much, we'll never know because he declined an interview for this story.
If you come against the church or attack the church of Jesus, then you must be aligned with Satan. You must be the enemy.
So are you the enemy now?
Oh, I'd certainly suspect some people would view me that way.